What is going on, fellow alchemists? Welcome to Quasi Astrology. Today we're talking about the moon in Aquarius and the moon in the 11th house. So if your moon is in either one of these, then this video is for you. And I hope this video really helps you get your interpretations more clear cut so that you can help yourself or help whoever you're trying to read the birth chart of or reading your own birth chart and really move towards the right type of interpretation here for yourself. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this one. It's the moon in Aquarius and the moon in the 11th house. So the moon in Aquarius and the moon in the 11th house. Firstly, let's define what the moon is. The moon in mundane or esoteric astrology is all about the reactions and emotions. Usually the idea is that what you react to, if you perceive something that might be possible, there's an emotion that generates from it. If something's happened to you, the reaction comes from it and the emotion behind it. But in the esoteric aspects, the more primordial, more in line with the primordial traditions and the more ethereal concepts of the moon rules over the lunar channels. This is why the moon also rules over the process of sexual intercourse, not necessarily the initiation of sex and the seminal fluids, which are ruled over in particular by Venus, but the sexual process of merging one state into another. That's why the moon acts as that lunar channel. We always hear about lunar channels, and the lunar channel's purpose is to allow for the individual to really encompass the astral aspects, the more ethereal and more perplexing nature of spirituality into their everyday life. So with Aquarius and the 11th house, remember Aquarius is the traditional ruler of the 11th house. Aquarius is also in esoteric astrology the sign that deals with service to humanity. It's the sign that pulls from the third or the three triad main rays in esoteric astrology, which is the ray of active intelligence. So this active intelligence aspect is where we find the nature of Aquarius and what makes it so quirky and eccentric. It's all about assessing the situation, assessing the influences outside in the cosmos, in our solar system, and more importantly, within the microverse or the little universe that lives within us all. So this is what the aspect of Aquarius really works on, and why we see this is in the iconography of Aquarius, in regards to Aquarius being one of the only two signs really that really match the nature of humanity, and humanity pouring a vase full of water into the tributaries, into the rivers, and reconnecting with the collective whole. This is why, in a sense, having the moon in the 11th house or having the moon in Aquarius can sort of give someone a kind of God complex. Now, what I mean by that is that you become very aware of the idea that you are, or you have tasted the nature of the collective. You're aware that it exists. You've now dipped your toe in it, and you've been basically immersed in the nature of it, but you haven't completely accepted it, because there's still one final challenge in the sense of completely surrendering your individual ego, which started the process in Scorpio, where we see the triumphant disciple walk into Sagittarius, and then the triumphant disciple becomes the master, and the absolute enlightened one in Capricorn, once they're able to pass through all that cardinal earth. And now we're in a fixed air sign where you're trying to finally find your way into the collective consciousness, and you're aware of it, but you're not completely submerged in it submerged in it fully. So you're still kind of like, I'm aware of it, I know I'm greater than what I am in this individual state, but because of that, sometimes that kind of plays in the subconscious, especially when dealing with the moon placement here. And you might have that kind of aspect of I know that I'm greater than what I currently am. And that can lead to the detriment of thinking you are greater than everyone else, when the whole purpose is to try and line that up with the fact that you are just a part of everyone else, and everyone else is divine in their own nature. Which is a very hard aspect of having moon in the 11th house or the moon in Aquarius. And of course, all of this matters on what is going on with your moon. What kind of aspects are you dealing with? What is the situation? What's sitting on top of your 11th house if you have the moon in the 11th house? What kind of sign is sitting there? Is it a sign where the moon is exalted, neutral, or in an enemy sign? Debilitated, basically. And also remember that the esoteric ruler of Aquarius is both in tropical astrology, is both the modern planet Uranus and of course Saturn. So this is Saturn's day house. This is where Saturn is more about the execution of perfection rather than the dissolution or the possession of it. And so when you have Uranus here, which is that rebellious nature, you have that rebellious nature implemented into your reactions and emotions on the mundane and exoteric level. because what you're trying to do is you're trying to exhibit that third ray of active intelligence, and you're trying to exhibit the rebellious, changeable nature, that electrifying nature of Uranus. And this can make you a huge rebel, but it can also make you quite special, quite creative, quite artistic, quite unique in your own way. And very different from how the rest of the world would see you, or how the rest of the world will try and govern itself and produce its own products through the mundane, everyday, very status quo types of expressions. Yours is usually very different. And again, that all depends on what is going on with your moon, what kind of aspects your moon is currently receiving, because that can make it much easier to use those kind of special abilities that come with the moon in the 11th house, and also use the nature of integrating that into your own life in itself. But again, don't forget that the 11th house deals with our gains at the same time on the exoteric level. So because the moon fluctuates, you might have issues with a fluctuation of gains. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to mean your monetary gains, because usually we see monetary stability in the second house, but it does in some ways mean your monetary and financial earnings, but it can also mean your social circles, the people you know, the knowledge you acquire. This can fluctuate because the moon fluctuates itself. So that lunar energy and that ability to utilize all of those aspects that come into your life can be in fluctuation. So always be aware of that and always be ready to face that when it comes. So fellow alchemists, I hope you really enjoyed that one. That was the moon in Aquarius and the moon in the 11th house. If you did, drop a like down below, go into the comment section and tell us what it's like to have the moon in these placements. And more importantly, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one when I do the moon in Pisces and the moon in the 12th house. So until then, take very good care of yourself. Goodbye.